In the 21st century, Fusong, a small courtyard spirit, earned her living by absorbing grievances. However, her life took an unexpected turn when she was forcibly pulled into the world of Malisu by a mysterious pot system. Her mission, to raise 2 high-grade green children. Though these children appeared harmonious on the surface, they secretly competed with each other. Yet, Fusong found them manageable compared to the red villain, who behaved like a docile dog, and the enigmatic male protagonist, who was as mysterious as a cat. Fusong's task was clear, to foster a bond of brotherhood between the 2 children, despite their differences. As she left the village for the orphanage, the scorching sun outside caused her to furrow her brows. She couldn't help but feel repelled by the weather, an obligation born from the grievances of others. Yet, knowing that the male protagonist and the villain shared similar troubled childhoods, Fusong realized their grievances must be extraordinary. Arriving at the orphanage, Fusong was greeted by the dean, as she happened to be the granddaughter of the village's richest woman. Naturally, the dean sought to select obedient and well-behaved children for Fusong to choose from as her wards. Despite her initial reluctance, Fusong knew she had to fulfill her duty, hoping that this seemingly daunting task would ultimately lead to positive outcomes. Fusong observed the children in the backyard, searching for her target. However, she couldn't locate the male protagonist, and the system in her mind indicated he might be in the backyard. Sensing Fusong's request, the dean, Miss Gu, hesitated momentarily, her expression betraying her reluctance. Despite the messiness of the backyard, Fusong insisted on exploring it, deflecting any objections from the dean. Upon entering the backyard, Fusong witnessed a distressing scene, a group of children bullying another, who seemed to be the male protagonist, Su Yenshue. Despite his innocent demeanor, Su Yenshue was being pushed to the ground and subjected to verbal and physical abuse. His expression remained impassive, but Fusong could sense the simmering anger within him. Fusong clenched her fists tightly, her eyes brimming with determination as she watched from a distance. Unable to bear the injustice, she confronted Su Yenshue, urging him to fight back against his tormentors. Her voice trembled with emotion as she spoke, her heart aching for the young boy facing such cruelty. Su Yenshue, the male protagonist, showed a glimmer of emotion in his trembling black eyes as he glanced towards Fusong. Surprisingly, he appeared quite beautiful as a child. Sensing the presence of adults, the bullying children ceased their arrogant behavior, and Su Yenshue displayed exemplary conduct. Despite being targeted by bullies, he remained composed and even rose from the ground with dignity, brushing off the dust from his pants. Observing Chu Yensui's demeanor, Fusong couldn't help but marvel at his ability to conceal his emotions at such a young age. His outward appearance belied the depth of his inner turmoil, and had Fusong not sensed his strong resentment earlier, she might have been fooled by his facade. It was a stark reminder of the harsh reality faced by children like Su Yenshue, who had been abandoned by their parents and left to fend for themselves in orphanages. Yet, amidst the challenges he faced, Su Yenshue demonstrated resilience and maturity beyond his years. Despite his difficult circumstances, he remained dignified and composed, earning Fusong's admiration and compassion. As she contemplated his plight, Fusong felt a renewed determination to protect and support him, unwilling to let him remain in a place where he was subjected to such mistreatment. His eyes betrayed a hint of disbelief, yet he obediently followed Fusong, though deep down he harbored doubts about his fate. Fusong couldn't shake the feeling that he would return in despair after 3 days, as the dean had informed her of previous failed adoptions due to misfortune befalling the adopters on their way back. Referred to as a broom star by the other children, he bore their taunts with silent resignation, perhaps believing there was truth in their words. Jin, as he was known, remained silent in the face of their mockery, his head bowed in resignation. Fusong stole a glance at him, silently pondering why no one had chosen to adopt him. She couldn't help but wonder if there was more to him than met the eye, despite the doubts that lingered in his dark gaze. With a mixture of uncertainty and hope, Fusong embarked on her mission to provide a brighter future for Jinjin, determined to give him the love and care he deserved. In the car, alongside Jin, sat a pale-faced 6-year-old boy named Tu Yenshue, clutching the seatbelt tightly to combat his motion sickness. Despite his discomfort, he remained silent, enduring the queasiness that plagued him. Meanwhile, Fusong received an urgent message from the system, interrupting the tense atmosphere. As the protagonist speed racing, Su Yen expressed his distress over the speed of the car. Fusong, though slightly irritated by the interruption, complied and slowed down. Suddenly, a white car appeared, driving in the wrong direction and posing a threat of collision. Fusong skillfully maneuvered to avoid the accident, but Chu Yan suffered a minor injury to his head. Incensed by the incident, Fusong stepped out of the car to confront the driver of the white vehicle, a middle-aged man named Li Wan. As Li Wan began to apologize, a young girl named Gu Fusong, with seaweed-like curly hair, approached from behind. Fuson, still reeling from her recent time travel experience, failed to recognize her, prompting the system to remind her that this was her half-sister. Caught off guard by the unexpected revelation, Busan couldn't help but feel a mix of surprise and curiosity about the girl's identity and her role in her newly changed life. As Fusong encountered specific characters triggering events on Buddha Island, the plot took an unexpected turn, revealing the deceptive nature of the seemingly dull young girl's throne. Unfazed by the apology of the driver, sister who still retained a hint of wickedness, Fusong reached into her bag and withdrew a handful of banknotes, tossing them directly at the girl's face in a display of disdain. Reflecting on the irrational behavior of the wealthy, Fusong couldn't help but feel a pang of regret for not directing her actions towards Afu. Returning to the car with a sense of guilt, Tu Yenshui expressed his apologies, though Fusong reassured him that the incident was not his fault. Clenching his fists tightly, Su Yen expressed his frustration, recounting the rumors he had heard from the other children. According to them, anyone who attempted to adopt him would encounter misfortune on the journey back, leaving him feeling like a cursed child, destined to be abandoned once again. She found herself lost in thought, contemplating the implications of Chu Yan's words. It was a stark reminder of the harsh realities faced by children like him, abandoned and overlooked by society. Despite her best intentions, Fusong couldn't ignore the sense of helplessness that pervaded her thoughts. She was determined to make a difference, to provide a glimmer of hope for Chu Yan and others like him who had been cast aside by fate. Taking Chu Yan's hand, Fusong led him out of the hospital. As they walked, Chu Yan expressed his discomfort with being deceived by strangers, seeking a way to alleviate his unease. The doctor, understanding Chu Yan's apprehension, gently inquired if he felt any discomfort elsewhere. Su Yan, maintaining his stoic demeanor, shook his head, concealing his injured hand behind his back. Satisfied with his response, the doctor reassured them that applying ice cubes at home would suffice for his injury. Exiting the doctor's office, Fusong received a prompt from the system indicating the direction of the villain. Feeling a surge of excitement, she urged Su Yan to follow her swiftly. As they approached, Fusong sensed a palpable aura of resentment emanating from the area, confirming that they were indeed nearing the villain's location. Upon arriving, they found a group of people gathered around, including the patient's family members, nurses, and children in nurse uniforms. Standing before them was a disheveled individual, likely the source of the distressing atmosphere. Fusong observed the scene carefully, contemplating her next move. It was clear that confronting the villain would require caution and tact. Steeling herself, Fusong approached the figure cautiously, her mind racing with strategies to handle the situation. The child's disheveled hair and dirt-covered face spoke volumes of his unfortunate circumstances. Despite his appearance, there was a certain tenderness in his eyes, hinting at the pain and suffering he had endured. As he weakly spoke, Fusong couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for the fragile boy before her. However, amidst the chaos and noise, Fusong maintained her composure and authority. She inquired about the child's medical expenses, determined to ensure that he received the care he needed. Her commanding presence seemed to swallow up the clamor around them, drawing everyone's attention to her decisive actions. Amidst the onlookers, Xiaoyu's gaze also fell on Fusong, her eyes betraying a hint of emotion upon seeing her. It was clear that Fusong's presence had struck a chord within her, prompting a glimmer of hope in her otherwise empty eyes. Throughout the ordeal, Su Yan remained silent, his thoughts and motivations hidden behind a veil of mystery. Despite his silence, Fusong couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to him than met the eye. As they prepared to descend to the first floor to settle the bill, Fusong couldn't help but wonder about Chuyang's sudden decision to aid a stranger, especially considering his affluent background. In the bustling courtyard of Fusong, Su Yan wandered among the array of prostitutes, akin to a child amidst a sea of choices. Yet, amidst this plethora of options, he was drawn to those who had lost their character, prostitutes forsaken by society's norms. Did Fusen harbor a peculiar preference for such individuals? It seemed plausible, given the enigmatic nature of the man, the villain, who would later sow destruction across the world, or the scars of embarrassment from his childhood. Fusang, however, remained unfazed by societal judgments. With a swift motion, she uttered to Chaoyu, "We will meet again." He stared blankly at his elder sister, Chaoyu, saying nothing for a long time. Xiaoyu returned his gaze, her expression unreadable. As the figure of Fusong Fairy's wife disappeared at the entrance of the hospital, doubt clouded his minds. Would they truly see each other again? Envy gripped Xiaoyu as he tightly clenched the note in his hand. "I'm so envious of him," he muttered to himself, feeling the pang of longing for a life beyond his reach. "Don't be stupid," he chided himself internally. "How could I, a gutter rat, stand in the sun?" In a swift transition, the scene shifted as Fusong arrived home with Chuyen. Stepping out of the car, Chuyen couldn't shake the feeling of being overlooked, a sensation unfamiliar to him. As he gazed upon the grandeur of the house, he found himself momentarily awestruck. But before he could fully process his surroundings, Fusong introduced him to his grandfather. The child's nerves were palpable, causing Chuyen to feel a twinge of anxiety. "Grandpa How," he stammered out, his voice betraying his apprehension. Uncle Gunnan, observant as ever, noticed his discomfort and offered a comforting gesture, ruffling the boy's hair affectionately. "He's such a good boy," Gunnan remarked, before suggesting that Fusong give him a tour of the house. As they entered the room, the boy's eyes widened in disbelief. "Is this really my room?" he nearly exclaimed, taking in the opulence surrounding him. But his joy was tempered by the realization of his own pallid complexion, a stark contrast to the vibrant surroundings. Suddenly, Fusong approached, extending her left hand with a playful snore, catching Su Yen off guard. He let out a snore, catching Chu Yen off guard, rendering her momentarily speechless. The girl sighed, his hurt evident as she spoke, "Don't hide it." She used alcohol to soothe the wound for him. Su Yen retorted, his demeanor icy as he rebuffed Fusong's attempts at affection. He persistently bombarded her with childish questions, refusing to yield to Fusong's authority. Sensing trouble, the system hurriedly intervened, fearing Fusong's potential to fabricate scandalous tales. Anger smoldered in Fusong's eyes at the sight of the child, whom had been separated from for too long for her parents. Su Yen asserted he knows how to do housework and can learn anything. "I don't want to go back," his determination evident. Fusong offered a wry smile, gently tapping his immature forehead. "Don't worry," she assured him, "even if you begged me to let you leave, I wouldn't allow it." Finally, Su Yan's expression softened into a smile, his resistance melting away. 3 days had passed since the main banquet graced the household, yet Su Yan still harbored worries about being sent back to the orphanage by Fusong. Throughout this time, he tirelessly sought to please everyone, recognizing the inherent charm of a beautiful child with impeccable manners. Today, as he assisted his aunt in making sandwiches, he seized the opportunity to casually inquire, "Aunt, sister, is there anything she like?" Understanding his subtle probing, Aunt Zhu replied with a gentle smile, "Little boy, I've practically watched her grow up. She has a fiery personality and is very approachable. Don't worry too much. You were adopted from the orphanage by the little miss. This means she must like you." The reassurance momentarily eased Su Yan's concerns, prompting him to reflect on his initial encounter with Fusong. Recalling the scene vividly, Su Yan remembered being bullied by a group of children, only to find solace in Fusong's intervention. Perhaps it was out of pity that she had taken him in. Trembling slightly with nerves, Su Yanshui carefully placed the sandwich in front of Fusong. As Fusong praised his efforts, a wave of excitement washed over him, causing his cheeks to flush with embarrassment. Meanwhile, Gunan Shu, accompanied by the butler, made his way to the dining room. Observing Su Yan, he greeted the young boy with a warm good morning. Despite being adopted under Fuzani's mother's name, Su Yanshue expected to be overlooked by Uncle Gu Nan. However, to his surprise, the old man expressed fondness for the sensible youngster. "Jian Sui is 6 years old, right?" Grandpa inquired, expressing his intention to enroll him in school once summer vacation ended. Su Yan's lashes quivered as she smiled in response to the old man's words. Meanwhile, Fusong, overhearing her grandpa's plans, delicately wiped away the remaining cow brain from her lips with a tissue. "Grandpa, I'll go get the other child and arrange for their school registration," she declared slowly. Fusan's determination to ensure a happy childhood for the children resonated with her grandfather's sentiments, however, amidst the familial warmth. Xiaoyu's harsh words cut through the air, each insult landing like a blow. With ruthless force, she pushed her child to the ground, drenching his already tattered clothes with scalding hot water. Stunned into silence, the child lay on the floor, his long hair obscuring his face. Across the ward, a patient couldn't bear the sight any longer, speaking out against Xiaoyu's cruelty. "Why do you take your anger out on the child? It's not all the child's fault," they interjected, attempting to reason with her. But Xiao Zhen, unfazed by the admonition, continued her tirade, embodying the word splash in her relentless abuse. Xiaoyu, numb to the chaos around her, contemplated fetching a broom from the corner of the ward, resigned to the cycle of abuse that had become all too familiar. But just as despair threatened to consume her, a familiar figure entered the room, casting a ray of hope into the darkness. Recognizing the kind-hearted stranger who had recently helped with fees, Xiao Yu's spirits lifted. The girl's smile seemed to possess a magical quality, thawing the numbness in the child's heart. Casting a sidelong glance at the villain, she extended her palm and inquired, "Who is Xiao Zheni?" The woman exuded an air of wealth at first glance, yet there was a hint of change about her. "Could you please enlighten me?" Fusong continued, her tone measured. Sensing the tension in the room, she addressed Zun Sang, urging her to compose herself. The mention of adopting her son everyone bewildered, prompting murmurs of confusion. In the midst of the chaos, Fusong remained unfazed, her demeanor indifferent as she handed the adoption agreement directly to Xiao Zheni. Reminding him that any conditions could be negotiated, she maintained her composure despite the escalating tension. Fuyue, however, remained silent, her gaze fixed blankly ahead. Despite the attempts to negotiate, the prospect of being taken away on such terms left her unsettled. She remained silent, her gaze fixed blankly ahead, bewildered by the audacity of those who still sought to take him away under such conditions. In a bold move, she threw the contract directly at Fusong, a silent assertion of her refusal to be coerced. With 10 months of pregnancy under her belt, it was clear she aimed to raise the stakes. Fusong, however, displayed unwavering resolve, offering a staggering compensation of 500,000 yuan without hesitation. Xiao Zheni struggled to maintain her composure, her eyes locked onto Fusong's unwavering gaze. Beside her, Xiaoyu looked on with disappointment, realizing he would never find satisfaction in his mother's actions. The notion of cultivating the male protagonist and villain of the book into good brothers lingered in her mind, but the memory of their pitiful youth tempered her optimism. As Fusong increased the price to 1 million, Xiao Zheni trembled with excitement, her eyes filled with greed. To her, the child was merely a means to profit, an empty vessel waiting to be filled with her desires. Despite her apparent eagerness, Xiaoyu harbored a trace of longing to seek Xiao Zheni's approval, though she remained silent. "Don't be kidding, Xiaoyu is my sweetheart." Xiao Zheni's greedy gaze shattered the last vestiges of hope in Xiaoyu's heart. He had never experienced maternal love from her, and now he realized he would never know satisfaction, even with offers of 2 million or more. As the truth dawned on him, Xiaoyu understood the depth of bias and the cruelty that rich people could wield to demean others. Xiao Zheni's fear reverberated through her as she worried that Fusong might retract her handhold with Xiaoyu at any moment. But she raised to 3 million led to his mother telling Fusong, "After the adoption procedures, Xiaoyu has nothing to do with me," she asserted, forcefully pushing Xiaoyu away. But to her surprise, Fusong intervened, catching hold of Xiaoyu before he could stumble. Timidly, Xiaoyu spoke up, his gaze pleading with Fusong, silently begging for release from this tense situation. Fusong remained silent for a moment, her expression inscrutable, before abruptly turning and walking out the door. In that moment, Xiaoyu felt a surge of courage, emboldened by Fusong's departure. "I am very well raised and will not give up easily," he declared, his determination evident. A slight smile tugged at Fusong's lips, a recognition of the boy's resilience amidst adversity. Though Xiaoyu harbored apprehensions about the future, he silently trailed after Fusong, knowing that even in her company, uncertainty loomed. Yet, he found solace in the prospect of escaping his mother's grasp, even if it meant venturing into unknown territory. As Fusong led him to the bathing center, Xiaoyu's nerves intensified. It was here that Fusong activated the transformation technology, revealing the scars that marred Xiaoyu's body. Despite the passage of years, some wounds remained indelible, haunting reminders of past trauma. As he changed into fresh clothes, Xiaoyu couldn't shake the nervous anticipation of what lay ahead. As Xiaoyu clutched his clothes and legs tightly, his discomfort was palpable. Fusong observed him closely, noting his delicate appearance, resembling that of an old man in need of grooming and better-fitting clothes. Determined to improve his situation, Fusong escorted him to the mall, where Xiaoyu followed obediently, his previous life of luxury shopping a distant memory. On their way home, Xiaoyu glanced up at Fusong, feeling a warmth he had never known before. It was a novel sensation, one that contrasted starkly with his previous experiences. When they reunited, the atmosphere between them felt more nuanced. Fusong wasted no time in introducing Xiaoyu to her grandfather, emphasizing his newfound role as her younger brother alongside Su Yan under Uncle Gunnan's care. With a warm smile, Uncle Gu Nan welcomed Xiaoyu into the family, assuring him that he no longer needed to feel restrained at home. As a member of the Gu family, he and Su Yan were entitled to their protection and support against any bullies outside. With these words of reassurance, Xiaoyu's heart swelled with gratitude towards his newfound family. In Fusong and Uncle Gunnan's embrace, he found a sense of belonging and security he had long yearned for. As the supportive words of the old man echoed softly, they filled the ears of the two children with a sense of contentment. Su Yan, please show Xiaoyu to his room first, she instructed, her words carrying a tone of satisfaction. Su Yan rose obediently, his eyes expressing a kind smile as she watched the two children ascend the stairs and disappear from view. Fusong couldn't help but feel a twinge of worry, hoping that the two would get along well. Leading Xiaoyu to the room next to hers, Wu Yanshui proudly declared, "This room closest to Sister Li is mine." Xiaoyu couldn't help but remark, "This person is so strange," eliciting a chuckle from Wu Yanshui. Concerned that he might overshadow Wu Yanshui's happiness, Xiaoyu brushed off the notion, eagerly anticipating the opportunity to explore his new surroundings. Opening the door, he was greeted by the sight of the most beautiful house he had ever seen, surpassing anything he had experienced before. It felt as if he had stepped into an enchanting dream world straight out of a fairy tale. However, Su Yanshui's gaze fixated on Xiaoyu's shoulder-length hair, prompting an unexpected question, "You're a boy, right?" Xiaoyu bristled at the implication, feeling insulted by the remark. Before he could respond, Fusong appeared, interjecting herself into the conversation. Observing the two children lingering at the doorway, Fusong casually inquired, "Don't you like it?" Xiaoyu's hands clenched slightly as he whispered, "I like it." Meanwhile, Qiu Yanshui, feigning nonchalance, nibbled on snacks, his discontent fading from his face as he reverted to his usual well-behaved demeanor. In the following days, Xiaoyu learned from the servants that Qiu Yanshui had also been adopted by Fusong. Despite their outward displays of affection for Fusong, the two children engaged in both open and covert squabbles, harboring their own sorrows but unwilling to reveal them to each other openly. Nevertheless, they maintained a facade of love in Fusong's presence as instructed by Fusong. As Fusong observed the two children, Fusong couldn't help but feel a pang of pity for their tumultuous life experiences at such a young age. A 6-year-old should have been indulging in the love and care of their parents, yet these children had endured so much suffering. It was impossible not to feel sorry for them. Reflecting on the notion of cultivating the male protagonist and villain into good brothers, Fusong couldn't help but wonder about the dynamics between them. Beneath the surface harmony, a subtle competition simmered between Xiaoyu and Su Yanshui. Even during meals, they maintained their playful banter, never missing an opportunity to tease each other. Xiaoyu hesitated for a moment before leaning forward, placing a chicken wing in Fusong's bowl with a determined gesture. His cheeks flushed slightly as his sister followed suit, sharing a bright smile. The atmosphere grew slightly tense as the two children exchanged glances, sensing the undercurrents of their unspoken rivalry. Uncle Gu Nan intervened with a smile, expressing his delight at seeing them getting along so well. "Even when I'm gone, you'll still protect Sang," he remarked fondly. As they ventured to buy school supplies with Fusong, their presence drew the attention of many passers-by in the city center shopping mall. "Oh my God, look at those two children. They are so beautiful," remarked onlookers, marveling at their striking appearance. The scene sparked curiosity about the circumstances of their upbringing, leaving observers to ponder the reactions of their parents to such remarkable offspring. The idle chatter of passers-by didn't escape the notice of Fusong, Xiaoyu, Su Yenshue, and Uncle Gun. When they overheard mentions of parents, both Chu Yenshue and Xiao Yu's expressions turned vacant. Chu Yenshue had been abandoned in an orphanage since childhood, without the love of a father or mother. Xiao Yu, on the other hand, had endured the abuse of his mother, a heartless scoundrel who showed him no kindness. Sensing the emotional turmoil of the two children, Fusong gently stroked their heads, offering comfort before suggesting they continue shopping.